But thanks so much to all of you who have joined us from all over the world. And thanks to our panelists for coming and helping us to talk about the state of the future of work in North America. So, so hopefully everybody's had a look at the conference and engaged. But I've got some quick bios so that we know who we're talking to. Eric Termuende is a globally recognized thought leader, author, and keynote speaker on the future of work and building teams that thrive. Eric has a deep understanding of the next generation of work and how to attract and retain the right talent. As co-founder of Now Innovations, Eric advises industry-leading organizations, institutions, and associations on future-proofing their teams, talent management, and rehumanizing the workplace. His best-selling book, Rethink Work, has become a must-read for today's leaders and is available on Amazon. I second that. Awesome book. Recognized as 100 emerging innovators under 35 by American Express, his ideas have been featured in Forbes, Thrive Global, The Huff Post, Globe and Mail, and more. From the stage of Coca-Cola and the Milk and Global Conference, Eric inspires, challenges, and opens minds to opportunity and doors to growth. Eric, thanks so much for being with us today.
Great to be here. Excited for the chat.
Okay. Heike Neumann joined SAP in 2009 and relocated to Vancouver 1 year ago, taking over the role as Head of Human Resources for SAP Canada. In previous roles, Heike served as Vice President for Executive Rewards and Global Equity, where she successfully introduced SAP's new equity landscape, and as HR Business Partner Lead for SAP's co-CEOs, driving the people agenda for their board area. Heike brings 20 plus years in human resource management, having worked for global players in the high-tech and pharma industry, as well as running her own startup for 5 years. Not bad, Heike. Well done. High five. Heike holds a master's degree in business administration. Outside of the office, she loves exploring Canada together with her husband, spending time in nature and horseback riding. Heike, I'm so looking forward to learning from you today.
Good morning, everyone.
Bhushan Sethi is joint global leader of PwC's People and Organization Practice, where he shapes and drives the firm's global network strategy for more than 11,000 practitioners in 150 plus countries. Holy cow. Delivering standalone and integrated solutions across strategy, management, technology, and tax consulting disciplines. He has specific industry experience in financial services and increasingly the tech sector. He's a thought leader, public speaker, media spokesperson, and influencer on the future of work, culture, workforce strategy, employee experience, and diversity and inclusion. Do you sleep? Just wondering. Featured in Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, CNBC, Yahoo Finance, World Economic Forum, American Banker, HR Digest, and the Human Capital Institute. He's also spoken at the Global Solutions Summit, UNDP, Wharton, MIT, and multiple industry conferences. He's a current member of T20 Future of Work Task Force, where he works with leading global think tanks, business and academic leaders to influence future public policy, and is a member of the World Economic Forum, Future Council on the New Equality and Inclusion Agenda. Thank you, Bhushan, for being with us today.
Thanks, Candace. Excited to be here.
Tim, when he joins us, I hope he joins us. I hope all is okay. He's known as Mr. Future of Work, and he's the CEO and co-founder of Guide, the life skills training app, reimagining high school education by helping 4.9 million high school students learn life skills in favorite careers. He's an accomplished international keynote speaker and world-renowned global tech influencer. Despite enduring racism and bullying while growing up in the Texas South, Tim graduated top of his class at Texas Tech University and the University of Texas while working 3 jobs, then went on to becoming one of the leading experts and global authorities championing future work and inclusive innovation for companies like Google, Facebook, Microsoft, and WeWork. He's been recognized by the Wall Street Journal, Forbes, South by Southwest, Talkto, Opportunity Hub, LinkedIn, Google, the Millennial Movement, and other major media platforms for his work as a global tech influencer. So hopefully he'll join us soon. And to Kelley. Kelley Steven-Waiss serves as Executive Vice President, Chief Human Resources Officer for Here Technologies. She has more than 25 years of executive management and consulting experience in human resources, change management, and corporate communications. She's also the founder of a cloud-based SaaS talent mobility solution called Hitch that uses machine learning and AI to match project opportunities to internal employee skill profiles. I am so looking forward to learning more about this. Prior to Here Technology, Kelley was Executive Vice President and Chief Human Resources Officer for Extreme Networks, Inc., and was responsible for the company's global human capital strategies. She's on the board of Form Factor Inc., chair of the advisory board for the Silicon Valley Education Foundation. She's co-author of The Inside Gig, How Sharing Untapped Talent Across Boundaries Unleashes Organizational Capacity, and that's coming out in April. And it helps companies unlock the hidden within their organizations to maximize talent, increase agility, and thrive. Kelley is an active member of the HR technology community, is a sought-after speaker with keynotes and panels, including Singularity, Disrupt HR, National Association of Corporate Directors. We're almost there. She's a Forbes HR Council member, contributor, and has been interviewed and quoted in many publications, including Forbes, Authority Magazine, and Thrive Global. She's a recipient of the Most Important Directors Award in 2019 by Women's Inc. Congratulations, Kelley. She's married and the mother of 4. Well done.
That's the big accomplishment, right? That gets lots of credit.
Let's kick off this discussion about the state of the future of work in North America. So Kelley, I'd actually want to start with you. When you and I were chatting as we were preparing for the panel, you told me about some of the stats and data that really shaped the direction of your book. Could you share with all of us what that data is?
Yeah, so there's really a trifecta issue in this country right now, and that is that GDP is going down into single digits despite technology obsolescence. So it's at, between 1% and 2%. We have engagement at, an all-time low. People are bringing only 60% of themselves to work, if you think about that. So they're leaving a lot of engagement on the table. And then thirdly, we're in a 50-year low in unemployment. And so this kind of perfect storm of issues means that, we're beyond the talent war now. We have to get a lot more creative about those critical skill domains that are, lasting 2 to 5 years. And we're all sitting on a gold mine of talent in our organizations, and we need a way to expose all the gold that we have, mine for it, and make sure we dispatch it to the right work. And I think a lot of my book talks about this inside gig. So now turning that, what we would talk about the gig economy on the outside, how do we actually create more gig work on the inside and make sure the right people are doing the good work for the company?
Any responses to? Are you seeing what are you seeing that backs up what Kelley described there?
Sorry, was that for me?
Bhushan, I think you're on mute.
I probably first talked about this topic 10 years ago, and as Kelley mentioned, we've been talking about this, staring at this problem for 10 years. The economic indicators, whether it's GDP, whether it's productivity, whether it's skills gaps, are not looking good. So looking for a new way to think about this and not just talk about this. And everyone talks about the narrative and it's about the stakeholders, not just the shareholders. But this year and in the next 2 years and in the immediate next month, given what we see with Corona, leaders are going to be held accountable by their stakeholders, by their employees, by their investors around actions they take, short-term actions around how you keep people safe, but also longer-term actions around how you bring people along, how you upskill them, how you transition them out of the organization in a humane way, because it's not going to all be great and everybody gets upskilled and it's full employment. There's going to be impacts, but how you handle those as a large organization, as an employer, as a community member is going to be critical. So I would agree, and I'm looking forward to kind of getting into the panel and kind of sharing ideas around how this is going to be actioned.
Bhushan, I've heard you speak about the importance of controlling that narrative. So, like, what does that mean?
Yeah, so a couple of years ago, many people kind of came out from policy. So we basically said, we need a connected narrative. We need a narrative not just for people in an organization, but all of the people in the communities, your suppliers, your candidates, your regulators, your government, because everybody cares about what you do in a corporation. Everything you do, including this, is out there in the domain. So having that narrative that connects those communities is critical. I think talk is cheap and action is kind of louder, and that's where kind of we're seeing kind of a lot of sentiment. And to Kelley's earlier point, it's not just about like in any measures, whether it's GDP, whether it's productivity, whether it's skills gaps, the numbers are not looking good. So having a different set of actions as well as the narrative to bring people along is going to be critical in the next kind of 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, and just one comment on that is that, you know, one of the things that I realized that there were a lot of books, and Eric, you might feel this way too. There were a lot of books that talked about the future of work and a lot of the theory and data out there, but not what we can do about it as practitioners. And so I really took the angle that, yes, there's research in the book, of course, but it's also a playbook on how to implement the future of work. Some of these ideas that I talk about, how to implement them, because so many of us, we need to do something. To your point, Bhushan, we need to take action. We can't just keep talking about it, because the future is now. It's already here. It's just not evenly distributed, as we say.
Yeah.
Candace, you mind if I jump in?
Don't ask my permission.
Yeah, you know, I love this conversation too, because, you know, when we talk about the future of work in North America, like you said, Kelley, it's not evenly distributed. And truthfully, when we talk about controlling the narrative, a lot of us that are probably on the panel today are looking at the small, medium companies. And I think that instead of controlling the narrative and looking at these national issues, what are we doing to really look at solving or creating our own narrative? The way that I look at it is that the future of work is not something that just happens to us. It's not something that we stumble or trip into. It's something that we can create on an organizational basis. And when we look at the talent war today across America and Canada, I mean, the numbers are there. There are over 1 million more jobs in America than there are people to fill them. Now, look, that's a national problem. And what I would say to anyone who's listening today is that this national problem doesn't have to be your organization's problem too. And I think the best way that we can beat the talent war on an organizational level is change the narrative and how we're attracting and retaining talent. I mean, look, let's just use PwC and SAP as an example. 2 phenomenal companies that are always on top of the charts, and that for good reason. That doesn't mean that somebody that works at SAP would want to work at PwC and somebody that works at PwC would want to work at SAP. That doesn't make either of those bad organizations to work for. And that doesn't make the individual that works for them a bad individual either. But I think when we talk about the job description and how we're attracting talent, we still use a 250-word one-pager to try to tell people what life they're signing up for. So look, the first thing I think we can do if we want to beat this talent war and better prepare for the future of work is to tell a better story to attract better candidates in the first place. I think that we need to understand that we're not just signing up for a job anymore, we're signing up for a life. And the job that we do becomes the vehicle that we drive through life in.
Awesome. Heike, I'd love to hear you hop into this. What are some of these actions that we can take as whether it's controlling the narrative or whether it's, you know, Eric, you make a great point. Like we've got to absolutely, there's things we can be doing, but hop in here.
Yeah, thank you. And I mean, you tapped into a number of topics right away that totally speak to my heart. I mean, yes, totally, the future of work is here. And yes, we in HR have to be more creative than we have been today. I mean, when we look into the talent attraction topic, the things that we have done in the past simply don't work anymore. And if we just rely on our existing processes, on our existing procedures, on our existing go-to-markets to candidates, we are not going to be successful. So definitely, we in HR need to be more creative and really put ourselves into the shoes of our customers, like the talent out there, the talent within our workforce, and think through what is it that they expect. So how can we kind of come together and make sure that we offer these things? That doesn't mean that we should kind of tweak ourselves, because, I mean, Eric, we have said it early on, it doesn't make sense to now adopt someone else's success story. That's not the way we're going to be successful. But to really be aware of what are our unique strengths and features of a company, and really promote these tell the story around these EVPs.
Yeah, and I think on that note, Heike, and about the narrative, I think that we have an obligation, kind of like the way that marketing reaches out to consumers, that we need to start personalizing and customizing a bit of that. You know, we have a narrative, and then we allow people to be themselves within that narrative. So believing sort of, I say, in the abundance model versus scarcity and the growth mindset, that people can evolve in that narrative the way they wish to, the way they can contribute. And if we can actually expose the opportunities for people to contribute at the highest levels they can, democratizing more of the work, wow. I mean, I can only imagine that. That's why, Eric, you know, the person that goes to SAP or PwC and is able to build their narrative, so they're in that company, they're never going to have to leave, or never maybe want to. But back to the EVP, if we don't make good on the EVP we put forward, just like a company who is marketing a product, you know, if we don't actually deliver on that through actions, then that is has a backfire effect. So putting some effort into who are we, how do we allow employees to build their own, I think is a critical lever.
Let's be careful about EVP as well too, and make sure that that's not a list of perks and benefits. You know, I think that a lot of us can fall into the mistake of ball pits and ping pong tables and kegs in the lunchroom and forget to really talk about the experience at work. You know, and I think we use Zappos to death. But, you know, what I love most about Zappos is that there would never be a day in my life that I could. And I know that because they've done such a good job at articulating what it's like when you're at work, not just the perks and the benefits, but, you know, from all the videos and from having conversations with people there. I mean, they've got shake weights and antlers and ferns and streamers all over the office. And the best part about that is that the folks that work at Zappos love that. I can't do that. And the fact that I know that before applying makes me appreciate Zappos and the people that work there even more. And so, again, when we talk about controlling the narrative and talking about the EVP, something that I think we really need to understand is that culture in an organization doesn't just live at the organization level. It varies from team to team to team to team. So if you're hiring someone on the accounting team versus the marketing team versus the HR team, I think you've got a responsibility to tell a different story depending on the experience that individual is signing up for. Because again, going back to PwC or SAP, somebody that's working in the call center is not going to have the same experience as someone in the business development side of the business. Yeah. And I think that we need it is on us as HR professionals to be articulate and transparent about the life that they'll live as a result of signing up for the job.
And I think I would like to go a bit back to what you started off with, mentioning the consumer, because I think that is truly an important theme that we really need to keep in the top of our mind. And that, of course, doesn't only refer to new talent, it also refers, of course, to existing talent. So we really need to look into the whole employee life cycle as an employer and as a company and see, well, what is the experience that these employees in the different settings actually have, and what kind of experiences do they have throughout the employee life cycle. So I think that's an important task for HR these days.
Yeah, and Heike, you mentioned.
Yeah, go ahead.
Heike, you mentioned, you know, that we have to change. We can't take existing processes and layer them on top. I use the example that, you know, toddlers have that little Fisher-Price toy with the triangle and the square and the circle, and you watch a toddler try to figure out how to put a square in a circle, and eventually that toy gets tossed across the room because it gets lost. And I think a lot of practitioners in HR are trying to put the square in the circle and going, I know this doesn't work anymore. And so we have to get creative also about looking across all of our programs systemically and say, gee, does base bonus and LTI still work as the total reward system? Because we talk about agile teams, then we do nothing to the compensation structure. Or we create an inside gig economy, but we don't then look at if people reskill and up themselves, you know, and are motivated to drive themselves towards a skill that is strategic for the company, what are we doing to compensate them for that? So we have to evolve all of our programs over time. And that's scary. That's scary for HR even, I think.
And exciting. It has been
exciting.
Super exciting time.
It definitely drives more complexity. And maybe to connect a couple of themes, like Kelley mentioned, like we need to be thinking more as marketing and the personas and the behavior traits of different people and the fears and anxiety that they have, and also kind of highlighting, like all of us have, the policies and programs have to change. So what's really interesting is the narrative. There needs to be a broad narrative for every organization. But as you said, Eric, it's going to be different if I'm in a claims function, wondering how my job is going to change when kind of the whole model is going to change in terms of claims, or I have to work with chatbots in a call center, or I'm a leader who's not going to be vulnerable because I don't have the soft skills to work in this economy and have to be reverse mentored by someone who's 25 years younger than me. These are the real issues that kind of HR and business professionals are kind of dealing with in the workplace that are very important. But I'm loving the connected theme around kind of personalization and thinking about kind of the employee experience, and everything has to change from leaders to policies to processes to how we talk and how we measure and what actions we take.
And I also think that being honest about where we're not strong can also be part of even attracting people as we're vulnerable as an organization. I see often that there's a gap between aspirational values and lived values, and I think things can feel like there's a bit of a baby switch when we say we're something that we're not. Yeah. And so being honest about who we are as a company and where we're growing and where we're struggling to be is really important.
Yeah, one thing that
will notice it right away, and that it's going to have the complete opposite effect of what you want to achieve with values, with this behaviors, with this culture that you put out. You have to live up to it. Otherwise, yeah, you all know fake news and fakes.
That's a good one.
Let's say short notice and then immediately. So yeah, that's not going to be a successful concept.
One thing you guys brought up is leadership, which is very interesting in the future of work. And Bhushan had put out some data about taking industrial revolutions of the past and looking at the leadership styles as they're evolving in the future of work. And I'd love to hear this group's view of, when work was repetitive, right? There was this hierarchical management, which was very easy to keep things on task. The widget has to make it through from one end to the other. Now, he says, we're moving from network of teams effect to it being about work, not jobs, and the, trusted enterprise where we have to serve three masters: the community, the individual, and the team. And that's a tall order. I'd love to hear what you guys think about the evolving leadership in the future of work.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll just kick off on the theme of authenticity. When we see lots and lots of companies are publicly explaining what they're doing around upskilling their employees and the public commitments they're making, including my own, the authenticity of leaders is really important. It's no longer just telling your employees that everybody must upskill, whether it's soft skills or digital skills. If those leaders are not actually rolling their sleeves up, understanding how, what digital skills are, agile ways of working, new leadership styles, as Kelley was alluding to, they're going to get found out, they're going to be irrelevant, and they're not going to be successful. So we're seeing a lot more the authenticity that it's show me what you do, how you act is going to be critical, not just kind of speaking from kind of the ivory tower anymore.
Yes. Yeah, and one aspect that I also see, the role of leaders is becoming more and more complex. Companies are more and more global, teams are more and more diverse, sit in virtual environments. You have a more diverse workforce, you have all these generations in your team, you might have people from different races, all kinds of really different set of people. And obviously it requires also a different style of leadership, so not necessarily one size fits all. That in itself is not new news. We always knew that there is situational leadership. But I think nowadays the complexities for leadership have just grown.
So Heike, on that note, one of the things we're experimenting with it here, we're about to pilot this idea because I'm about action, is people managers and work managers. So think of the people manager as a curator of your career. So you're assigned 35 people and all you do is focus on their career and if they're reskilling or upskilling, understanding what project-based work is available, what full-time roles are available. So you're like a curator about them, their agent. And then the work manager is, because work managers in the future are leading projects sometimes, so that because of their expertise, and then they're rolling off this and leading something else or being a participant. So we're trying to bifurcate this role, because often what gets left on the table is the development side of people, right? The care and concern, and not because managers are not good people, but because they don't have time. It's too complex. Yeah. What are you guys? How does that resonate?
Yeah, and Kelley, I would really be interested in hearing more from your experiences. We try out the same at SAP. So we do have self-organized teams. We also now have different leadership concepts that we are testing out. So with people really focusing on people management and people development, as you call it out. But you can imagine, I mean, we're a company of 100,000 employees. So, I mean, making that a global thing isn't easy. And we're also not yet sure what does really work and what doesn't. So it's really a testing phase. So be very curious as you move forward with your projects to share a bit.
Yeah.
I think, go ahead, Bhushan.
Go ahead, Eric. No, go ahead.
Okay, well, I mean, Heike, I think, rolling something like this out globally is almost like dangerous, right? When you're talking about that many people. And if I could, I just kind of want to like pop the professional services and white collar bubble that we might be stuck in too, because, Pallavi had a great question. Can we talk about how work is changing and what we can do about it? I mean, when we talk about white collar professional services work, leadership styles evolving, like Josh Bersin suggests, might be very true. But let's not forget, still, the majority of the population that are not in these style of jobs, that are still in the manufacturing line, that are still working the laundromats and the gas stations, that are still doing everything else. And so, to suggest that there's a one size fits all, and when we look at where's the future of work going, what I would say is that just don't get caught trying to repeat or replicate or duplicate what somebody else is doing. Learn from that, be inspired by it, but ensure that you can innovate on it with the people that you're going to be serving in the first place anyways. You'll find out very quick what leadership styles work when you're getting feedback and implementing that from the people that you're leading in the first place.
Yeah, and that gets authenticity, right?
Well, that's it, though, right? We want to truly be authentic, and we want to truly be pioneers when it comes to the future of work and leadership, then I think that it really requires us to better understand the people that we're leading and incorporate their feedback as much as possible. Because as soon as we do that, that's when each leadership style is going to be unique to the team that they're working on. And so for those who are listening today, know that the future of work doesn't look like one thing. The future of leadership doesn't look like one thing. And the sooner we can talk to the people that we're serving, the sooner that we can better understand the environment that we're working in, the better we'll be off as leaders, and the more we can tackle our market share.
Yeah, because I love it, Eric. I mean, I think that we should pop that bubble now and kind of focus on the demographic, and that's why the role of communities is really important, because the people you may offboard today may either be your customers or go work in other small businesses or be entrepreneurs or something. And that's why kind of the way that you kind of onboard, offboard talent, or the same thing with clients and suppliers in a local community in Des Moines, in Illinois, in British Columbia, it's really critical. Think about the businesses that are suffering right now with Corona. It's not big companies, it's small, medium enterprises that are going to be impacted because they're in the transportation sector or the service industry, because they can't make payroll and they can't, they have to kind of offboard people. So, when you think about North America, small, medium enterprises are going to be a big driver of growth and job creation using some of the platform technology. But we also know they're also highly vulnerable to shocks like we're seeing today. So I think it's a very important that we need to think about kind of the workforce in a broader sense.
Well, high growth too, and high potential because of that community aspect. I mean, when we look at the small medium business and our ability to blend work and life, what is it that we're doing outside of work too? Does work start at 9 o'clock and end at 5 o'clock? I mean, rarely. The truth is, the average American now is working more now than they ever have before, and that's primarily because of this device right here. Whether we're in the office or not is a different story, but connected to this thing. I don't know about the 5 of you, but the last thing I did before bed last night is check my phone. And the first thing I did when my alarm went off is checked it again. And I think that ability to better, it doesn't make it good, but that ability to connect with community and to have that connection with the people that we're working with and the problems that we're solving, I think is going to be more imperative now than it's ever been.
Yeah.
Awesome discussion. Eric, I want to just see, like, with this, part of your message is around this 1 degree shift. So, and Bhushan, you brought up Corona. Right now, businesses are super worried about, like, we're press releases about, the UK's message about be prepared businesses to shut down or to not have people showing up for up to 3 months. Are you kidding me? Like, where is the opportunity, and what can you provide the people that are listening about how to approach this next 3 months? I don't know, like, what we learn right now.
So I can start, and Eric, you can please jump in and others.
Heike, Kelley, like, yeah.
I mean, no one has, none of us are medical professionals here, and thankfully not politicians. So I think what we're going to share is what we're seeing with our clients is now's the time for leaders to step up and lead through uncertainty. This is a shock. This is no different. There'll be other shocks that come in subsequent years, whether it's economic, whether it's technology, whether it's ethics or whatever. Like the way leaders show up, the way we communicate, the way we're authentic, the way you kind of help people out when they're in a particular situation. If someone doesn't want to travel, if people want to work remotely. So there's a template of kind of work that needs to be done. The point that I want to make is it's not just being fixated on the markets and looking at the impact of interest rates going down and what does that do to kind of stock price, or even how effective remote working is. There's other subtleties when we think about the people, like inclusion. The amount of explicit racism we've seen in schools, in society, in commutes, and that probably is seeping into a workplace, many workplaces, is really important. So doubling down, and that's just in the last month because of Corona.
Yeah.
And then doubling down on inclusion and making sure that everyone is comfortable and there's zero tolerance. This is the moment where leaders show up, back to everything we're talking about, authenticity. Eric and others.
Yeah, look, I mean, Candace, you asked about the 1 degree shift, and let's just talk about this real quick. This is an iPhone. I don't even have the newest one, but the new ones are 524 gigabytes. In 1997, the Palm Pilot was released, and the Palm Pilot had a 512 kilobyte memory. If anyone remembers that, it was fantastic. I remember drawing on the screen. And so, when I did the math, I had to turn my phone sideways because this iPhone has 2 million times the space that the Palm Pilot did just 20 years ago. And where I'm going with that is here. We didn't just jump from the Palm Pilot to the iPhone 11. We made a series of changes and pivots along the way to get us to where we are today. And I think that when we talk about the future of work, we talk about change, speed, disruption, exponential innovation. We talk about these massive words that nobody really knows how to tackle. And so I bring in this idea of a 1 degree shift because I think it's the smallest viable change that we make over and over and over and over that ultimately gets us to where we're going. It got us to where we are today, and it's going to get us to where we're going next. And I think that if we can start to empower and employ the potential of our teams to understand where that friction is in the first place, and usually it's going to come down to communication, trust, belonging, and psychological safety amongst our teams, and look at the smallest viable change we can make to reduce that friction over and over and over again, then I believe that we as teams, as organizations, can tackle any problem that will come its way because we're not rocking the boat, but we're not standing still either. See, the last thing I'll say is that, in studying the future of work for so long, I've realized there are 2 things that people hate. The first is change, and the second is the way things are.
Yeah.
So this, with that being said, we know that we can't rock the boat. We can't stand still. So if we take this smallest viable change as 1 degree shift approach, then it's this little iterative process that gets us to where we're going next more intentionally.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that, Eric, is that with the coronavirus, one of the things we can do, right, that speaks to everything you're talking about is allow everyone to contribute in a new and different way. That is the most inclusive strategy, most creative. If you think that just because someone's in a box with a 250-page JD, they can only do this, then you can't actually mine the talent that you have. So right now, when we cannot travel, when we're given all these constraints, rather than look like it as Armageddon, what is it that we can do, like people that are co-located because they're stuck, or people that actually can contribute because they have other skills somewhere else? How can we organize work and things to get done differently so that people can actually contribute? And the constraints are a perfect environment for that. I just took a new role, which Candace, I didn't get a chance to tell you, I'm now the Chief Innovation Officer for Here Technologies. So I went from leading HR, because I'm disruptive, to now leading innovation in the entire organization. And I will tell you, I'm going to be pushing on this because we have to just keep thinking outside the box, keep doing stuff that maybe seems like it's writing with your left hand, but it's actually doing something more creative. So I am going to be the chief disruptor, I think.
And some of that, Kelley, could be with people outside your organization. So this is a time where you get together and you share, because these are societal issues that impact everyone. This is the latest one, but like, how can you share around medical? What can you share around remote working? Is there infrastructure capacity that you can share? So there's this whole co-opetition, and we're seeing a lot more clients convening to kind of share this, because this isn't about competitive advantage. This is about kind of life and work.
I think one thing that we can add too is a lot of us, I find in panels like this, we're saying, what can we do to, and the onus is on the listener to then solve it. But if we want like a simple action then too, it's simply to host or bring people together for a morning hackathon, a 3-hour deep dive with each other, bringing people from different departments. And look, you don't have to be an expert at hosting something like this. What I found when we do hackathons and design thinking sessions, the byproduct of the session is the idea that comes from it. And the real value, that's culture too. The real value is the fact that we can connect with each other, share ideas, and leave with new perspectives than we showed up with. So, I mean, look, if we've got, let's just say, a coronavirus issue, the first thing I would be doing as a leader of my team is bringing the team in for a 3-hour hackathon to say, hey, how can we as a team proceed for the next 2 weeks? And then we'll do it again. Because you can bet that when we release the potential of everyone on our team, the ideas, the suggestions, the move forward is going to be incredible from people who live this as their lives too.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
Love it. So we do want to make sure that I love that there's been some questions that are popping into the chat at about 8 o'clock Pacific time, so in 7 minutes, depending on where you are. We'll definitely turn it to participants to see what questions you have. But I'd love to just hear the panel. We've been hearing a lot about culture over the last number of years, and now infused in culture is this stuff about employee experience. I feel like we're throwing these words around as though we all agree about what that is. Could you just speak to what is employee experience, and how, for the HR professionals that are listening to this is Hacking HR, what is the opportunity for HR to speak into that employee experience in a time like this as we're shaping the future of work?
I'll start real quick. And if anyone wants to shoot me a line on LinkedIn, I'll happily send you like the worksheets and the things that I go through with clients. Nothing to sell or anything, you just have them. But one thing that I often ask teams to do is to understand their heart, their habits, their artifacts, their rituals, and their traditions. So when we talk about the employee experience, what does it actually look like to live in the organization? I mean, what I'd like to know is how many emails are people getting a day? How many phone calls are they making? How many hours are they in a meeting? What time do you actually get to work? What time do you actually leave? When you do leave, do you take work home with you or not? How many people are on your immediate team, and how much do you interact with them? How much project work is done? Like, what is it? What is the employee experience? Not just what are the perks and the benefits, but what will the life be that you live? And when we can understand those habits that happen on a regular basis, those artifacts, those physical things that we actually gravitate around at work, those rituals that happen when we smash a sales target or miss one, when we onboard someone or let them go, I think are really important. And finally, the traditions. What happens over the summer every third Friday? What happens in the holiday season? You know, what happens on a long weekend? What happens on birthdays or anniversaries of the company? These truly are the differentiators. I just looked at New York yesterday on LinkedIn, and I looked at the position account manager, and there were more than 100,000 account managers in New York. Now look, highly trained professional individuals that are, I'm going to assume, are great at their job, but doesn't mean that account manager for the New York Rangers is going to be good for the United Nations too. And I think if we can understand the heart of our team, the heart of our organization, again, HART, that's when I think we can truly understand the employee experience that we're offering our people, and then leverage that to attract like-valued people.
So, Eric, I just want to step in there. So we understand it. That sounds like a good step one, but then what?
Well, then I think you co-create that experience with the people that you're working with. So again, I would just bring as many people to the forefront as possible. When we democratize this process, when we totally reduce the hierarchy and make it flat and co-create what that optimal experience is, then we know that the best for us can just be best for us. Look, the best place to work in America right now is Hilton Hotel Chain, Fortune 2020 best company to work. The second best place was Salesforce in 2019. I think it's EY. Bhushan, for this year. And look, the people that work at Hilton won't necessarily want to work at EY, and the people at EY won't necessarily want to work at Hilton. So I think the heart then must be different from team to team, organization to organization, and then employ the team to double down and create that best experience for them.
Yeah, I have a funny slide that I put up, and Eric said it so well. I'm not even going to try to redefine it. I think that was awesome, and I love the heart, the acronym. I have a slide that says the hierarchy, people's hierarchy of needs at work, and at the bottom, I do all the psychological safety, and at the very bottom is Wi-Fi. Right? So,
nice. Yeah.
So, if we don't have connections, and we laugh, but it's true, right? That has become a new need. Like, we are tribal people. If you think about how we've been socialized from the beginning, we want to be with other like people. We want to build tribes, and tribes come in smaller tribes, even within the organization. And so that need to connect, to belong to something, is you can't manufacture that. That's something that is really from the people, by the people. And if you can then hold on to it, so create that heart in the company, by the people, for the people, and then be able to hang on, right? That is what we can do today. And then, you know, of course, our ultimate need left, as funny as that is to be connected, right?
Mm-hmm. I would add that to Eric's practical point, if you go into an organization tomorrow, you go back to your organization tomorrow and say, what does employee experience mean? What is it? Why is it important? How does it help the business? You'll get so many different definitions. So defining what does it mean for you, it obviously includes the tools you use, because that's a big impediment to people's productivity and experience. We use better tools in our consumer life than we do in our work life. It is everything we've talked about in terms of leaders and how they show up. It is what people say about you outside the organization. For some firms, it's workplace. For some firms, it's the archaic HR policies that they have, or the performance management process that they hate. But really defining what it is and what it is not for you is going to be important, so that you can actually drive some change around it. And it's not just yesterday's employee engagement souped up with a word experience because everything has an X these days. Heike, I know you've got some thoughts on this.
Yes, I would totally like to build on that. I mean, it is impossible to provide the perfect experience in each and every situation. That is simply impossible, and it can completely overwhelm the company. So it's totally about identifying these big bets and making sure that you do this really, really right and well your candidate, well, your workforce and candidates, depending on who is your customer. Yeah, but I totally go for this selective approach. Be choosy, be picky, know your big bets, and deliver them really, really well.
Okay, we've got, thanks so much. Awesome discussion. We've got a couple of questions popping in here. I just need to scroll up here. So Tanya says, what if you work in a millennial demographic in which you ask for all to contribute, but then their suggestions are all different? Then they all think that their contribution should be implemented. We want to be inclusive, but if contribution doesn't work, how do we make our organizations inclusive another way?
I'll step in quick. The quick thing that I'll say, and I forget the study that I'm going to refer to, but speaking as one of those millennials that you allude to, what I would say is that it's more important for an individual to be heard than it is for their idea to be implemented. And I think that that's one of the big misses of modern technology, is that a lot of the times we can use text and email and Slack and anything else, but that doesn't replace the face-to-face conversation and the understanding of why that idea may or may not work. And so in our process, what we've done with groups of, anything from 6 to 150 is that we've used this like democratic voting process, where once everyone gets their ideas on the table, then with a flat, totally democratic process, people can vote the best ideas to the top, and then we can talk through why those ideas are best and ultimately serve the team most effectively. I think that actually is the best way to be inclusive, because then not only do people have their ideas heard, but they understand through the collective why some ideas will rise to the top and some won't through discussion. And I think that truly is the most inclusive way to do it.
And I think that's an important lesson, right? And I'm a parent. I'm going to talk about that. Now you know my age too. But I have 3 teenagers, one in college in Boston. And one of the things that was really tough about this generation that he's in is everyone getting a blue ribbon, right? Everybody wins. And in life, I don't know that that's the best lesson. I think everybody should have a voice and everybody should have a vote. Yep. At least to put it out there. But at the end of the day, we're going to land on a decision, not implementing all 50 of those decisions. And that's tough today, because I know some of the millennials, just the way they're growing up with all the blue ribbons, that's a tough lesson if you have to learn it in corporate America. Right? But we can't run companies. We want leadership everywhere, but we can't make decisions necessarily that way. And so I saw a question in the chat about that. It's like we want, like Eric talks about, want to get the best ideas, but we're going to pick 1 or 2, right? We're not going to pick 25.
And we're seeing more and more of the demographic stereotypes being shadowed by a lot of data. So we ran a consumer survey for 12,000 people around learning types. And we basically said, what would incent you to learn new technology? A third of the respondents said they learn it because they're curious and they're kind of innate, curious learners. So a second third said, we do it because of status and it will help us advance in our career. And a third said, we're doing it because we're kind of coerced and we have to do it. We sliced and diced that by all the demographics, and it was the same. There were millennials in the curious bucket. There are also millennials in the resistant, I'm going to do it because my boss told me bucket as well. So we have this concept around it's the psychographic, not the demographic, and so really understanding behavioral traits and what motivates people in your organization. I think you'll start to shatter the illusions. Plus, the millennial population is so broad now, it needs to be kind of micro-segmented anyway, even if you think about that.
Well, we as, I'm Gen X, but I have the same human needs it drives me crazy when we talk about, well, the millennials need this. And it's like, yes. Well, no, that's a human need. It's a human need to belong. It's a human need to want your idea to have a shot. I mean, let's not box the poor millennials into they're the whiny generation, because I wouldn't want my generation to be, just generalized. We're all different people, to Eric's point. Like we all show up, but we all have our own, we have human needs, but then we have a reason why we're joining the tribe. So let us be individuals.
Yeah.
We have a question from Joy here. How do you create strong connections and culture with remote teams?
Two suggestions. Number one, and I think this is the most important, is manage expectations. What I've come to learn is that disappointment is realized when expectations aren't met. It doesn't matter if you're talking about your relationship or when you go out for dinner tonight. If you expect a nice hot steak and a cold one comes out that's undercooked, you're going to be disappointed, full stop. And I think the biggest problem that we have, or one of the bigger problems we have in the workplace today, is that we promise the world, like these job descriptions say you're going to be part of a motivated, highly functioning, driven team that's can't wait to succeed. But the truth is, if you're working in a remote capacity, what I think often happens is that we promise the world and then find that there is actually no connection or interactivity. So that disappointment is realized because the expectations aren't met. Now, the second thing is, if we manage expectations and talk about how much connection there's really going to be, the thing that we can do, I think, for those teams that are already existing and remote, is to have a set time or a couple of times a week where people can come together. And the more we can connect, like whether it be, so let's just say phone is better than text, video is better than calling, and in-person is better than video, the sooner or the more options we can have for people to connect as a team, the better off that we'll be. So number one, don't overstate what is going to happen. And number two, give people the opportunity to come together with as many different senses in play as possible.
Yeah, I would totally chime into that here. I mean, fully leverage technology that is out there. I mean, look at our panel that's now is taking place. And of course, you can do totally the same in your teams. There are so many ways nowadays that, I mean, they of course, they are different than being in the same room. There's no doubt about it. But technology is so advanced nowadays. Many folks don't leverage them. I mean, encourage everyone to turn on their camera if you have a if you have a phone call. Very often, simply people don't do it, even though the opportunity exists. And right away, it makes a difference. It's very, very small things that can be done right away and immediately make a difference.
Yeah, and acknowledge the small things, back to the humanness. So if your employees have dependent care people at home, or kids running around, or they don't have the infrastructure, or they're not proud to kind of share what's in their background, like understanding kind of who your people are, to the earlier point, that it's not all about the white collar and people like us. Everyone has Wi-Fi.
I love, I don't know if you guys love this, but when my kid comes to kiss me goodbye, forgets the video and kisses me, and then all the chat lights up like, oh my God, that was so cute. And you remember that CNBC or interview where the guy's trying to have an interview and the baby walks with the walker.
Yeah, that's amazing.
We all love that, but you can see the mom in horror trying to grab the child, right? It's human, it's okay, right? I think that actually, for me as a leader, right, it humanizes me when somebody sees that side, right? Yeah. Instead of leading, directing, giving presentations, it's okay to be that, and people actually feel a little closer to you because they go, yeah, they're like me. And so I think it's great. I think all that chaos that could be ensuing in the back, assuming you can still hold your call and get things done, it's okay.
Yeah. And it can really be small things. I mean, just if you send a note of appreciation or recognition when, I don't know, a special holiday is going on in an employee's country. Just a very, very small, tiny piece doesn't cost you anything, but just make a huge, huge, huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I have, we want to get to Mike's question here, which I think is a good one, but I'll just add, I'm a remote worker. I'm a consultant. Most of my clients are away, and remote workers will always be on time for their calls. And often, for people who are in the office, they're busy getting coffee, and it's like, oh shoot, we need to dial in so and so, and remote workers often feel like they're a bit of an afterthought, and so just having a designated somebody to even dial them in 5 minutes before the calls about to start, and be in on some of that chit chat so that you can go, hey, Bhushan, you shaved your beard, or
Or allowing them to ask questions. Right? Allowing people to participate, because I know I'm remote a lot. I'm on planes a lot, but I'm also end up being remote, and forgetting the people on the phone might have something to say because they might not be on video that day, so they can't see the gesturing of people, and making sure you include their ideas. They might be quieter, they might be thinking about something, and you want to make sure you grab those great ideas. So I think that that's very important in being inclusive.
Yeah. Can I just say quick? Yeah, I'll just say real quick that this remote work conversation, as new as we like to think it is because of technology, it's not new. And we know this to be true because distribution centers has always been disconnected from corporate. The field team in any resource or commodity-based sector has always felt disconnected from corporate. And when we can apply the things that the panel is talking about today, regardless of the industry sector size or profit status, and make people feel like they matter, like they're contributing to the success of the organization and they're making a difference in their team, regardless of whether remote or where we're sitting beside each other in headquarters, we'll all start to see a better result.
Yeah, but to your point, Eric, people don't like change. So if people are being told to work remotely when they used to work together, you've got to set expectations that it is less dehumanizing. It may be not how they prefer to interact. There is going to be a productivity gap. There's a need to bring people together, to your point earlier. So,
well, there's an expectation gap.
Yes.
There's an expectation gap there too, because there aren't that many situations where someone's going to be told that they've been in the office for 20 years, now you have to be remote. Usually, that's bad leadership too, in a way, I would say.
Yeah.
Well, next question, and we've got 4 minutes left. So, in your opinions, what's the one capitalized biggest specific challenge facing HR leaders focused on the next 5 years for the future of their workplace and workforce? So if HR leaders focused on one thing, the future of work, setting their businesses up.
Oh, I can go, but it's going to be two. It's the experience and it's digitalization.
What was that, Heike? What was it?
Digitalization.
Digitalization. Before HR, that is for helping the business to go through that.
I will add that I think the CHRO needs to become the COO of the talent supply chain. So they need to think of themselves as managing a critical asset, like a COO would manage capital assets as well, and product inventory, that we need to make sure that we have that supply of critical skill sets to execute strategy. And we need to find a way to visualize it, mine it, understand that supply and demand curve so that we don't let the CEO and the company down. And we have an obligation to figure that out. So, and then I'll add one too. It's disrupting ourselves. So conventional wisdom and the way we've always been doing it is not a recipe for the future. So being willing to change, and Eric said people don't like change. They don't, but we're going to have to change what we're doing, because what we're doing today won't take us where we're going.
Embedding the people strategy and decisions in every kind of business strategy planning session, in every major business decision. This is a 25-year-old challenge. This is not new. It's nothing to do with technology, but we see many, many cases where the business leaders kind of make assumptions around the workforce considerations of a deal or a new product or a new customer and a change, and then don't necessarily think about skills, the people, the receptivity, etc.
Yep. I like the comment, what got us here won't get us there. Marshall Goldsmith, no.
Right
there we go. The one thing that I'll say, just to be a little bit different, is that we all need a bit finer of a filter. Okay, so I mean, look, we're living in this knowledge economy now where accessibility to information is greater than it's ever been before. But if we think that there's a one-size-fits-all solution when it comes to the future of work, when it comes to how we manage and lead our teams, unfortunately, that's just not correct. So that filter needs to be better than it's ever been before. Not all information is good information for whatever it is that we're trying to build. And unless we can innovate and iterate on anything that we hear and customize it to the group that we're leading, I don't think we'll be serving them to the best of our ability.
Heike, anything else you want to add there?
No, I think think these are all good, really, really good topics. And I mean, I came out with my 2 statements, so no, all good.
Well, thank you so much to each one of you. I have learned a ton from everybody here and from the people in the comments. I think I speak on behalf of all of us that we love the questions and engagement. And I think you can find all of us on LinkedIn. We'd love to connect offline. Eric's book, Rethink Work, Kelley's book, you can pre-order. Bhushan, you've got some great videos. Heike, I've seen I found you online in a number of ways. Thank you so much for engaging so fully.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Candace. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.